Rain lashed down. The highway was a river of black, reflecting the lightning that split the sky. Jason gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. His car, a battered Honda Civic, struggled against the wind. He was late, lost, and now this storm. The motel sign, a faded neon sign, appeared through the deluge. It flickered. Motel vacancy. The letters half burnt out. It wasn't much of a choice, but it was shelter. Jason pulled in, the engine sputtering its last. He just needed to wait out the storm. He had no idea what awaited him. He grabbed his worn leather duffel bag. The rain soaked him instantly. The motel sign cast a sickly yellow glow on the asphalt, the only light for miles. A shiver ran down Jason's spine. This place felt wrong. The motel office was small, dusty, and lit by a single fluorescent bulb that buzzed overhead. Behind the counter sat a woman. Her face was a mask of wrinkles, her eyes like two black marbles. She didn't smile. "Room 306, she rasped, pushing a key across the counter. "Last one." "Thank you," Jason said, his voice barely a whisper. He was suddenly very aware of how alone he was. "And sir," the woman's voice, sharp as broken glass, stopped him. "Don't look out the window." Her words hung in the air, heavy and strange. Jason turned back, a question forming on his lips. The old woman just stared at him. He took the key and went, his unease growing with every step. The room was small with a musty smell. The wallpaper was peeling and the furniture looked like it belonged in a junk shop. Jason tossed his bag on the bed. The storm raged outside. He was exhausted. He just wanted to sleep. He glanced at the window. It was dark, a black rectangle against the storm-tossed night. He remembered the old woman's words, "Don't look out the window." What had she meant? He told himself it was nonsense. He was tired, his nerves were on edge. Still, he pulled the heavy curtains shut, just in case. The tapping started softly at first, then it grew, insistent, like fingernails scratching against the glass. Fear, cold and sharp, shot through Jason. He held his breath, listening. The tapping stopped. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He told himself it was just a branch, swaying in the wind. Then he heard it again, a soft, mournful sigh. From right outside the window, he couldn't help himself. He had to look. Jason pulled back the curtain a fraction. The rain was a sheet of water against the glass, and then he saw her, a face pressed against the glass. White, gaunt, her eyes wide with terror. Her mouth was open in a silent scream. The scream echoed in Jason's soul. Section 5. No escape. Jason stumbled back, heart pounding. He tripped, falling hard. The face at the window, it was gone. He scrambled back, putting as much distance between himself and the window as he could. He told himself it was a hallucination, a trick of the storm and his exhaustion. He tried to rationalize, but deep down he knew something was very wrong. That's when he heard the window slide open, slowly, silently. He looked up. She was inside the room. The woman from the window. Her dress, once white, was now a tattered grey. She moved towards him, her feet not seeming to touch the floor. Jason was paralyzed with fear. He couldn't move, couldn't scream. He could only watch as she floated closer. Section 6. A glimmer of hope. The woman stopped right in front of him. Her eyes, those terrifying eyes, stared into his. He saw an eternity of suffering in their depths. He squeezed his eyes shut, bracing himself, but the touch never came. He opened his eyes a sliver. The woman was gone. Had he imagined it? He didn't know, but he knew he couldn't stay here. He had to get out. He stumbled to the door, fumbling with the lock. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely turn the handle. The door wouldn't budge. It was stuck, jammed tight. He rattled the handle, desperation rising like bile in his throat. He was trapped. He looked back at the window, the only other way out. He had no choice. Section 7. Vanished. The storm had reached its peak. Wind howled through the broken window, rain lashing the room. He had to get out, now. He took a deep breath, steeling himself, then threw himself at the window. The glass shattered, cutting into his skin. He ignored the pain. He had to escape. He scrambled through the broken window, cutting himself on the jagged glass. He didn't care. He ran. He didn't look back. He didn't stop running until he was far, far away from that cursed place. He never looked back. He never told anyone what he saw that night. He couldn't. No one would believe him anyway, but he would never forget. He would never forget the face at the window. Section 8. The search for Jason. The next morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight streamed through the broken window of room 306. The room was empty, the bed untouched. The only sign that anyone had been there was the shattered window and the bloody handprints on the windowsill. The motel owner's granddaughter, Mary, was worried. Jason, the man who had checked in last night, was gone. His car was still there, but he was nowhere to be found. She had knocked on his door, but there was no answer. She tried the handle. It was unlocked. She called out Jason's name, but there was no reply. She entered cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was a mess. The window was broken, and there was glass everywhere. She saw the blood on the windowsill, and her blood ran cold. Section 9, a message in blood. Mary's eyes darted around the room, taking in the scene. Her gaze fell upon the wall opposite the bed. There, scrawled in what looked like blood, was a message. It was messy, almost illegible, but she could make out the words. "I told you not to look." A chill ran down her spine. She backed out of the room, slowly, her eyes never leaving the message on the wall. She didn't know what had happened here, but she knew one thing. She would never forget what she had seen. The message remained, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked within the walls of room 306, a testament to the fate of those who dared to defy the old woman's warning. The motel stood silent, a tomb holding its dark secrets, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to cross its path.